Everybody. It's Tuesday morning. It's kind of a slow news day, kind of because everybody was off yesterday. Slow news week. I see Patrick's got first blood. Sergeant Major joins us. Got Mario with us this morning. We're going to be talking a little bit about Mario brought up this article from Revolver. The headline here. How you doing this morning, Mario?
Hey, I'm doing fine. I got plenty of sleep last night. I forgot to put on my CPAP, so it was bad sleep, but it was plenty of it. So I'll take it.
I'm actually going to the VA tomorrow to get a new CPAP. Hopefully, I'm really believe it or not excited about this.
Nice. Nice.
So, but anyway, we've got this article. Fired federal workers are being institutionalized, collapsing in cubicles, and sobbing to emo rock. Okay.
This is part of the
Brushfire
Mind emotional health series. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. Yes. So that's right. I should have put on my white lab coat for this episode because Dr. Lowry's about to give you some advice. And here's my basic advice for men, and for especially young boys. Guys, I see like comments from Pitt Danny, Patrick Brown, James Lowry. I know these men. These are grown ass men. They're a little older. They're in the latter half of the life cycle, and quite frankly, it's too late. It's too late for them to take the advice. But here's the advice that I have to offer for these young men who are finding themselves institutionalized over having been removed from federal employment because of their whatever gender expression, racial identity, political bullshit. Very, very simple advice. Don't be bitches.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's why I labeled myself. If you look in my little, whatever you want to call my thumbnail or whatever, I listed myself as former government employee because I went through essentially. Look, I was in the military, but that is basically a government employee. All right. Hell, I was in the Fort Meade area, so living in the exact same zip codes as these people having a meltdown. All right, and I can tell you, I lost my job in the military after 12 years, which is not a great year to get out. Okay, that's well past I did my first term, and I'm getting out because I got a plan. Or some soldiers do the 2 terms, the 8 years, and then they get out because they have a better plan or they're more grown up then. 12 years, no. 12 years is basically I've decided I'm in this all the way. Okay. And then I happened to get a DUI under President Barack Obama's presidency. And that was basically the end for Mario. So it was my fault. It was no one's fault but my own. I was sad about it. And I was, stressed out about it. But what did I do? Well, I went online and I looked up literally, this is exactly how I did it. Okay. I looked up top 10 jobs for veterans without a degree. Okay. And I had a 10-sided die at my desk because, well, military intelligence, of course. And I rolled the die and it came up commercial diver. And I'm like, okay, I can swim. I'm an excellent swimmer. That was my sport in high school, competitive swimming. I have no fear of the water. Why not? And I'm still physically capable. Let's do it.
You learned a healthy fear of the water as a commercial diver, though, didn't you?
I did. There's some dramatic moments where, disaster could have struck when you're underwater working with hydraulic or pneumatic equipment or Broco burn torch equipment, working in the pitch black underwater, demolishing bridge piles. Yeah, it is incredibly dangerous work. And what I was paid for it here in the state of Florida, which, well, was a joke. Basically, I'm like, okay, so the guy at Chick-fil-A is making the same amount of money as me, and I am rapidly aging my already 37-year-old body, doing backbreaking labor. Perhaps this wasn't the one for me. So anyway, I found a much easier job for a 40-year-old man, which is basically sitting in a chair, talking to people, and acting smart. Okay, I could do that for the rest of my life. So
yeah, it works for me.
Yep.
I'm real good at acting smart.
And not this show, by the way. My actual job. Okay. Yep.
My actual job involves a lot of acting smart too.
Mhm.
So you guys know now I do real estate photography, and I tell you, I've got some tricks, right? And one of my tricks, I'm the photographer that people ask for. I'm the guy that gets requested. Uh, and that goes so far as I go to represent at the big realtor brunches and stuff. I'm the representative to, hey, Next Door Photos, great company. We do the turnaround. The first time I did one of those, the master of ceremonies comes up on the stage, and this is a very successful multimillionaire real estate agent who's been selling luxury homes in the Atlanta area. Like, she sells the Buckhead, the multi-million-dollar mansions, the custom builds, the shit like that. Master of ceremonies gets up on the stage and she introduces one photographer, and she tells everybody his name and what company he works for, and then she brings me up and she says, and this is Mr. Christopher, he's my photographer, right? And of course the result of that was my phone was ringing off the hook for the next couple of months. Hey, you do joy shit? Can you come shoot this? Can you come shoot this house in Buckhead for me? Hey, I've got this mansion on the lake in Oconee, and I ain't gonna lie. Part of what makes me everybody's favorite is my photography is excellent. But but a bigger part is the interaction I have with them, right? And it's little stuff like it. I can walk into a house that has been staged for photography and it's perfect. I can look at it, and having shot, several thousand houses in the past 4,500 houses in the past 4 years, I can walk in and look at it and I can say, okay, this is perfect. But if the agent or the homeowner's there with me, I'm gonna walk over to the dining room table and I'm gonna adjust the chairs slightly. I'm gonna shuffle the plates and the silverware on the table around a little bit. I'm gonna move little things. I'm gonna make tiny little, absolutely unnecessary changes. It's perfect, and they see me making it more perfect. And then I'll do the stuff where I pop around the camera and I pull out a little pointer and point at the images that I've taken, and I explain exposure and high dynamic range and stuff like that. And the experience that the customer's having is, this guy knows his shit.
Yeah.
The fact is, I do, but we're talking about something where knowing what you're doing, the proof is in the pudding once you get the really excellent photograph. But there's some intangible between making the work and doing the work, between doing the work and having the final product, where the customer doesn't have access to the difference in the quality that's being produced there. And that little bit of extra something is what really takes me to another level in the eyes of the client.
What you're doing to a degree is commercial art. Okay. So
Correct.
yes, of course, there is a certain je ne sais quoi involved.
And not just to a degree commercial. I mean, Mario, the photos I take are in the, luxury living Atlanta magazines. That's
Right.
this is art. Sergeant Major calls me a huckster, and he's absolutely right to a degree. That is playing the game. That is making the sale. But
gotta be
when I
sorry.
first got out, Mario, I opened an insurance brokerage, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I first got out of the Army, I didn't go commercial diver. I didn't go into a physically demanding job. I went and started pounding pavement, knocking on doors, selling insurance. In particular, I was licensed for all lines. I was selling property, business, casualty, all that stuff. But for the first couple of years, I focused on health insurance because it was at the time that Obamacare was about to go into force. And so the market that I targeted was business owners who wanted to get their hands on a pre-Obamacare company policy for their employees. Because at the time we were predicting that when Obamacare went live, it would at least double the cost of health insurance for employers. Turns out it more than quadrupled, and sometimes 8x those costs. It took it way the hell out there. Yep. But the first thing I did when I got out is I said, okay, what, like you said, what job can I get without a degree? Mm-hmm. And I had my degree from DLI in Korean. I actually got, yeah. Hey, dude, within a couple of weeks of getting my DD 214, I was getting phone calls from the Kia plant here in Georgia. Hey, you want a job, Korean linguist? I was like, no, not there. Your location is bad, and I don't want to talk to. I don't want to struggle to keep up my language.
You mistook this certification with it being something I enjoy doing. You see, no, I don't. Right. I'd be more than happy to forget you bug people for the rest of my life. Thank you.
But anyway, so I got out and I asked myself, what can I do without a degree? And it turns out there's several jobs you can get that pay a little more, a little higher end, that have the licensure bar to entry. And as much as I hate licenses, I'll tell you this: if you can jump through the hoops and get you a license in something, an insurance license, real estate license, etc.,
yep.
Contractor license, surveyor's license, there's plenty of licenses you can get where it's a bar to entry, but the existence of that bar to entry artificially inflates the wages of the industry. Insurance was one of those, and I did well with it.
Is our British fan here? Because we're talking about licenses.
Which one?
I forgot his name. It's been like
Alex or Bear.
Unverified. Yeah. No, I don't see him. Oh well.
No, I haven't seen Bear pop up yet.
Okay.
So, and the reason I bring that bit up about the insurance business is one of the big things that Obamacare changed was it raised the age to 26. Until you're 26 years old, you stay on your parents' insurance. Guys, we can go back 100 years and the word teenager was not a word. Okay? The word teenager was designed to artificially lower the perceived age of competence. It used to be the 13, 14, 15 years old, you were working, right?
Do you think that is I'm trying to
family business. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think back when that change took place, when basically, adolescence, pubescence is a thing. Okay, it always has been, but when
correct,
when that gray area was legally established within the United States, I suspect it had to do with labor laws, right? Probably. But yeah, I'm trying to think back. It's obviously before my time, because teenagers were a thing when my parents were teenagers. So probably with the labor reforms, the progressive labor reforms of the early 1900s. I suspect. But anyway,
looks like it was first introduced around 1894. So, like I said, a little over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
The
Gilded Age. Basically, no more 12-year-olds getting their arms chopped off in the loom. No more. Yep.
But we went from that. Then we get everybody going into a public school until they're until they're basically 18, until basically the age of majority, what we now consider the age of majority. Mm-hmm. And historically, it wasn't all that long ago that at 14, 15 years old, your daddy could kick the bucket and all of a sudden you're running a 1 million acre plantation because you're just the next guy in line. And you're not ready to do that if you haven't already been steeped in it. Yeah. Another great place to make this comparison. Tim Pool had a baseball player on the other day, and they were talking. And as they were talking about baseball, one of the things that struck me, and it's something I've known, but it just kind of struck me to hear him talk about it. When you hear professional baseball players, football players, etc., talk about their experience going into the sport, they've been doing it since they could stand up on their own. It's what they've done their entire life, right? Yeah. You don't get to be 14, 15 years old with almost no exceptions. You don't get to be 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, right? You don't play your first baseball game in college and then become an Atlanta Brave or something.
You started at T-ball when you were 6 years old.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So you have to begin that early. And what the institutions have done to us, you'll remember, when Donald Trump was running for his first term, the lefties were screaming about free college for everybody, free college for everybody. Everybody should get a government funded free associate's degree. Y'all, let me tell you something. Today, an associate's degree is worth almost nothing.
Yeah,
A high school diploma is worth less than nothing.
Yes, that's
and it
why.
is precisely because of market supply side economics, supply and demand.
Yep.
If everybody has it, nobody needs it.
And to a large degree, government jobs became essentially this vacuum, or this like place filler for all these people with useless degrees. Okay, because I mean, you could say the military to an extent as well. Like, you could enlist in the United States military, and let's say you have a worst example, like a degree in women's studies or whatever, or a degree in African American studies. Well, you could start off as a specialist, you know what I mean, just because for fact that you had that degree. Or you could do the officer candidate program and become a butter bar, a communist butter bar, which I would much rather you just be a specialist, thank you. But yeah, so government jobs were the place to go when you had a shit-lib degree. All right. And that business model, or that employment model, is ending, and it is an existential crisis for many of these people. Okay, they don't have the resiliency or wherewithal of someone who did like 12 years in the actual military. You know what I mean? Where they've had their share of failures and successes, enough to balance out and even their countenance, right, to the point where they can endure hardship. These are people who have essentially been coddled their entire lives. These are people. These are employees who, when they were students, probably had like coloring books in safe space rooms. Okay, at their college. All right. These are people who've been raised in whatever you want to call it, the woke program, or neo-communism, or fourth wave feminism. All right, basically whatever the latest iteration is of Marxist theory. All right, and that has been a guiding force. That has been the undercurrent for their entire either student or professional lives, and that is now ending. And it is, honestly, it is an existential crisis for them, because that's all they know. And
and they've been done,
and it's long overdue, I might add. Okay, I've been waiting. We've been waiting for the pendulum to swing back for like decades. So thank God.
These people are perpetual victims, right? Everything that's wrong in their lives is somebody else's fault. And I'll grant, to a degree, that's actually true. They are victims of a system that has intentionally caused them harm. It's just that the system that has intentionally caused them harm is academia and the left-wing obsession with the infantilization of human beings. So, when Mario and I were coming up, I've often said that the worst mistake I ever made was graduating from high school. I live in Georgia. It was actually possible when I was 17. I could have made the choice to drop out of high school, take a GED, and let the Hope Grant put me into college. I could have started college before I was old enough to have graduated high school, and had an associate's degree in the same time it would have taken me to get my high school diploma. And I kind of knew that at the time, but I didn't really understand the value of it at the time. The Hope Grant. It's a
is that
academic
like
scholarship. It's funded through the lottery here.
Oh, I thought is it like the United Negro College Fund, but for Neanderthals? I was just curious.
Oh, no, I'm not eligible for either of those because I'm white.
My joke failed. It's okay.
No, I flipped your joke.
Okay.
I suggested that the Neanderthals are also eligible for the United Negro College Fund.
Well, I was suggesting that you have greater than the average 3% Neanderthal DNA. Probably I do too, just because of our cranial dimensions. But anyway, all right. I can't stop. Indeed. I'm out of practice, dude. I'm done. Maybe you just need to just get yourself a mute button, okay? When Mario loses it, mute him. And now that I've completely derailed you, please continue.
Anyway, so when we were coming up, we were told that you couldn't get a good job unless you went to college. And an associate's degree was not enough. You needed a 4-year degree.
Yep.
You needed at least a bachelor's,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you needed to start figuring out how you were going to pay for that. Holy crap. Was that ever one of the biggest lies ever sold to the American people?
Oh,
And I've even been told, and you're going to love this. My dad told me when I was younger. And here's the bitch about it. He was and was not wrong when he told me this. That hiring managers, employers, broadly speaking, right? We're not talking about the very specialized stuff, right? Right. You need to go to a trade school for certain levels of technical jobs. You need an MD to be a doctor. You need a PharmD to be a pharmacist. You need, a Juris Doctorate to be a lawyer. Those are kind of special case examples. Broadly speaking, though, outside of that, jobs that say that they require a bachelor's or better, they don't care. Right? They may prefer, but they don't care that your bachelor's degree is in their specific subject matter. They want to see that you were able to show up, do a job, stick around for 4 years, and complete the task.
Right.
And if you could show them that you're good for those 4 things, that's a big deal. But Dad was right when he told me that, and the world changed. And now more and more it has become the case that people are learning that having that 4-year degree doesn't only mean that the best I can hope from you is that you meet the bare minimum standard of showing up at the right place at the right time in the right uniform.
No, it doesn't even mean that anymore.
It doesn't even mean that. And it comes with the added bonus tag that you have had your intellectual capacity actively harmed over a chronic malediction.
Right. And that you are quite possibly an emotional time bomb. You are an emotional time bomb that if I release into my workforce, it's only a matter of time before someone says something that's going to offend you to the point where you're going to make it the company's problem, where it's going to affect the bottom line because you had an emotional issue on the work site. Yeah.
Or you're a walking lawsuit. You're a lawsuit waiting to happen.
That's what I mean. Emotional time bomb.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we could take a look at this at the article now. It says they told us DEI was progress. They told us these government jobs were building a better, more inclusive America. What they didn't tell us is that this entire system was creating a class of emotionally broken dependents who tied their entire identity, purpose, and mental stability to a taxpayer-funded title. We're talking about people. Sorry, Mario, I didn't mean to cut you out there. We're talking about people who have been infantilized, right? They're basically, think. For those of you that are in that boomer category, and in the 40 to 50, 60, 70, if you're 40 or older, right? You probably remember being a senior in high school and recognizing suddenly, you come back from summer break, you're senior in high school, you see the freshmen show up, and the difference between what you and your peers are at 17, 18 years old and what the freshmen coming in at 13, 14, 15 years old are, seeing how big that difference is, right? Like, my wife is several years younger than me, but in her late 30s and my early 40s, that age difference is not substantial. But you start talking about the difference between a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, that difference is extreme.
Of course.
Right? I mean, it's not quite the difference between a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. But it's...
No, it very well could be.
Much more dramatic than the difference between somebody who's 40 and somebody who's 45.
Substantial difference in prefrontal cortex development, not to mention the cumulative effects of your body's natural sexual hormones taking effect. So
right.
No, huge difference between 15 and 18.
So part of what's happened to these guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s with these government jobs and victimhood, victim studies degrees is they never graduated from high school. They never had a moment where they went from being a child to suddenly and necessarily being an adult until they're 26 or 27 years old. Now, like I mentioned before, you look at pro athletes, and there are other examples, but pro athletes are the ones where it's easiest to see. They start doing the thing that is what they love and what causes their development almost as soon as they can walk. As soon as they can stand up and hit a T-ball, that's how they start. As soon as they can play catch with their dad in the yard, that's how they start, right? My little battle plays soccer. He loves soccer. Who knows? Maybe he grows up to play soccer. But my point is, like I said earlier, somebody who doesn't start off playing the sport from a young age, they're never going to be a pro ball player. When you're talking about these guys that go all the way through college before they have a real job or a wife or kids or engage with the world in a meaningful way, you're talking about somebody who never picked up a baseball, who's suddenly 30 years old and thinks he's going to play pro. They have neglected their development so far. By the time they're in their late 20s, early 30s, there's no hope.
Yeah.
Because they have gone past the state of neurolinguistic elasticity at which you can actively acquire new substantial information and skill set.
Yes. That was my excuse at DLI. Anyway.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Mario and I both did pretty well at DLI through the course of instruction. And
academically we did great, but passing that final test to get qualified as a linguist was extraordinarily difficult. Okay. Chris actually managed to do it. Unfortunately, something to do with my memory and the way that my ears work. Okay. I would take the DLPT, okay, and it'd be the listening portion, and I'd hear the question, and I would remember the question in detail from the previous time I took the test, and I would remember what answer I gave. So I'm basically sitting there like I'm at a gambling table, and I'm like, okay, well, did I choose correctly last time, or did I not? You know what I mean? But based on the question, the answer is clearly D, right? But I might have been wrong. Who knows? And I could have just been reinforcing my wrongness.
Well, and here's the point that I was getting at, right? Relating this back to the baseball players, football players, et cetera, sports ballmen. We both passed the D-Lab, the Defense Language Aptitude Battery, the test that you have to take to be able to get there. It is a test that determines whether or not you have the innate competency to acquire new linguistic skill sets. When I was 8, 9, 10, I had made it a point, and it was just a silly fascination to me at the time, to learn how to count to 100 in, I forget now, it was 10 or 15 languages, right? Now, I didn't learn all those languages, but I could count to 100 in like Spanish, Korean, Chinese, Russian, German, French, etc. I had just a bunch of them. It was just a thing that I kind of like, oh, well, that'd be neat if I could count to 10 or to 100 in all these languages. And then it was like, okay, well, hey, let me learn as many, salutations as I can. And I still know a lot of those more basic salutations, basic language for a lot more languages than I'm actually fluent in. But, I know, Mario, your background, how old were you when you learned Italian because you lived there?
Well, I was already in my early 20s, but that wasn't the issue. It was as a young child, I was the type of nerdy kid who would like make his own little ciphers and languages. I'd make my own. Basically, I'd make my own alphabets. All right, and sometimes I'd combine the words because I would be reading like some Greek story, and it's like, oh, you could put the A and the E together. Oh, cool. What if I can do that with other? Just just nerdy little fat boy, little fat kid, at his desk, at recess because no one wanted to play with him. Anyway, so
But my point is that was our t-ball. That was our catch. That was, that's how I ended up learning Spanish and Latin before I graduated high school.
Mm.
Is we started early. I didn't get to 25 years old, enlisted in the army, and decide I want to be a linguist.
I started taking Spanish freshman year of high school, and I just immediately excelled at it. I thought it was awesome, like learning a different language. Okay, and the grammar and syntax, I figured that out real quick. I was like one of the star pupils in the class. And then when I moved to Italy, I'm looking at Italian, and it's like, okay, I can use Spanish basically as a template to learn this new language.
Exactly.
And I'm going to learn it real quick. So it's basically
you can't do that with Korean.
You cannot do that with Korean. Korean is level everything. We have to start at the foundation.
Korean is not an earth language.
Okay, so yeah.
Korean is not an earth language.
Spanish, Italian, French. I'm sure if I got dropped off in Romania, I could figure that shit out pretty quick too. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much anything Latin based, anything Western European based, because I did take German as well. So, and honestly, just being fluent in English, if you have a linguist type mind, if you're perceptive to that sort of thing, you can look at Scandinavian or Germanic languages and basically immediately pick out like, oh, look at all these cognates. Oh, that's like the spelling. That's how they spell certain things. That's like the nuances and how they use the consonants. Okay, and you could start building a vocabulary really quick. Okay, so I'm a natural linguist. Okay, it's just I don't do Asia. Okay, just no Asia. Thank you.
Well, and you mentioned taking Spanish in high school. Tell you a funny story. We when I was a sophomore in high school, Dad got orders, and we PCS'd from Brunswick, Maine, down to Georgia. I took Spanish I took one semester of Spanish in like middle school in Georgia, and it was very basic. And then I took 2 years of Spanish in junior high school, 7th and 8th grade in Maine. And I was pretty good. I was pretty fluent in Spanish at that point. But then when I got to high school and did my freshman and sophomore years in Maine, I took Latin. I had a blast doing Latin. Then I moved to Georgia, and they had they were just starting this new system, this new educational philosophy.
Yes.
You had to choose either a technical degree path or a college degree path. And because I was already 2 years in, basically they made the choice for me because I couldn't, to go the technical degree path, I'd have to start over because they didn't, there was all this academic nonsense around it. But I was basically forced to go the college prep route, and the college prep route here required that you take foreign language. And I said, oh, that's cool. I already speak Spanish and Latin. And they said, well, we don't teach Latin, and your Spanish is from junior high school, so you have to take high school Spanish.
It's because you were in New England, which would have a higher standard because of the demographics. And then when you went back to Georgia, well, everything's leveled towards a lower playing field. So yeah.
And that problem has exacerbated dramatically since then. But so anyway, as a junior in high school, already pretty fluent in Spanish, I got stuck into introduction to Spanish.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo soy. You want two arrays.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
Yeah, I walked in on day one, and I'm the oldest student in the classroom because it's intro, so everybody in there's freshmen. And I sit down with my book, and I'm like, buenos dias. Yo soy Christopher Lowry, y yo creo puedo hacer eso. Puedo aprender todo español si tenemos que tratar eso. And I got this teacher who's no, not Jalapen, Ecuadorian. Senora Nieto Studstill. And she's like, you know this is intro to Spanish, right? This is what they told me I got to do.
I cannot unlearn it. Thank you. I'll just be
exactly.
I'll be quiet.
I can no longer unlearn this language. Tengo que aprender español para mi todo career de escuela.
So, you want to get into these? We got 3 sad examples of people who
yes,
they couldn't survive
former
Doge.
federal worker Caitlin.
Yeah, you can see the people. I'm really good at just seeing the physiognomy of these people, and you can already tell just by looking at her. Okay, she's got really poor. Here, go up, and let's look at this woman. Okay, so she already was kind of cheated because she has really poor sexual dimorphism of her face. All right, that she actually has the face of like a low testosterone middle-aged male. All right, if you look at it closely.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah, she's physically one of those lumpen body people, like I call them potato people. All right. So yeah, not a lot going on there for her, unfortunately, and this government employment and this is basically all she had. So, but she did have a husband. If we read, well, when we read further, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you can see the ring there.
Aaron Olson, stop it. You can't say that.
I think you meant to say you can't know that. Caitlin was so devastated after being fired from her DEI federal job, her husband found her on the fire escape contemplating whether it was high enough to jump. He later had her committed. Sadly, Caitlin, who suffered her entire life with mental health issues, committed suicide, and somehow the Washington Post article made it seem as if this was Trump's fault. The president had called federal employees crooked and dishonest, and his deputies had vowed to purge them from government and make them suffer. And now, on the 6th day of Trump's second term, right before he rested, a federal health researcher was missing. Her husband searched every room of their Baltimore townhouse, calling her name. Caitlin Cross Barnett had struggled with depression, and now her husband, Mike, found her on their narrow third-floor fire escape. As he tried to coax her back in, she replied, "It's not high enough to jump." Over the years, in her darkest moments, Caitlin had often told him she felt she didn't measure up. She never felt adequate as a daughter, as a wife and mother, or as a researcher. "Of course you're enough," Mike said over the phone. "You do so much, you're more than enough." "You're enough for me," he tried to tell her. But soon after, she hung up. 98 minutes later, the call was from the hospital in Virginia. It would have learned that the mental health facility had staff checking on Caitlin every 15 minutes, but she saw an opening between checkups and killed herself.
Grim. So, a couple things I want to point out here. One, Baltimore.
Hang on. It doesn't say it just says researcher. So go ahead. What did you want to say, Mario?
Baltimore townhouse. Okay, so I know exactly where she lived. Okay, there's this for Baltimore is a hellscape. Okay, now 95% of the city is an absolute hellscape. You've got the harborfront area, which is supposed to draw tourists, but it doesn't because it's still too dangerous. And then there's this one section, all right, where like the gastro pubs and like the trendy bars, okay, and restaurants are. Right, it's this little carve out where it's basically white government employees living there like DC bohemian lifestyle. I know exactly where this woman lived. Okay. Now, as for her, I actually feel bad for her husband in this case. Okay, but I have to ask him if he really wanted to save her life, he would have taken away all the prescription medication, because I guarantee this woman was basically taking a cornucopia of pills on a daily basis. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it mentions that the article tries to blame Donald Trump for calling federal employees crooked and dishonest. I'm going to say a little something in her defense. Mario, how many times have you gotten to, say, lunch as an enlisted soldier, as a non-commissioned officer, with soldiers for whom you're responsible, and been slapped the fuck out of work to do? You've got
say that again.
How many times when you were active duty as a non-commissioned officer with soldiers you're responsible for, you got your poopies, and let's say it's motor pool Monday, right? You've gone out, you've changed the oil in all the trucks. It's lunchtime. There's nothing left to do, and you have to make shit up to keep everybody busy until 5 o'clock.
Oh, countless times.
You're required by law, under threat of non-judicial punishment under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, to keep those soldiers occupied. You got to make up some hip pocket training. I used to say, okay, we got nothing left on the training schedule for the next 2 hours. Everybody pick up a rock. We're going to practice throwing grenades at that target.
Yeah,
right.
Yes. Staff Sergeant Romano would take his 2 best buck sergeants to Subway, buy them lunch, and we're going to sit down and basically come up with a plan for the rest of the day. That's what we did.
Exactly.
Many times.
And I get it. There's training, and training is important. But we schedule training. We put it on the schedule. We have training. We have work. We do our jobs. But there is such a thing as running out of shit to do. And you know what? At absolutely every available opportunity, if I could get away with it, I would send my soldiers home to spend time with their families, or just, hey, in fact, I don't even go watch a movie, go eat a cheeseburger that costs you too much money because it's got gold flakes. I don't care. Go do something that makes you not be wound up like an ass tight pocket watch.
We were not allowed to do that, unfortunately.
And we get back to it tomorrow. But more often than not, you can't get away with that shit. And that is the government. Like that happens everywhere. And then the other one, the crooked and dishonest. You get to the end of the year, you get to the end of the budget, the end of the fiscal year. You're looking at October, and now it's time to play dumpster smash PT, because you have to figure out a way to spend all the money that you could possibly have been allowed to spend, for fear that if there's any money left over in the budget, it'll get cut by the next Congress. So yes, that is, a large piece of what happens with fraud, waste, and abuse. Yes, there are crooked assholes stealing your tax money, but a large part of it is the government is designed to continue to make itself larger and bloviate itself. Yeah. And so that fraud, waste, and abuse is something that many government employees are essentially forced or required to do. So there's a lot of them.
The bureaucracy is constantly expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. Absolutely.
Correct. And so there's a lot of these guys who are essentially useless eaters because they just don't have the courage or the maturity to look at what they're doing and say, good God, I'm wasting my life, and make the choice to go and do something else.
Yep.
So let's take a look at the next one.
Max.
We're already 13 minutes past the hour. You good to go for a full hour today, Mario?
Yeah, it's fine.
Excellent.
Knock it out. Check out. So okay. So let me just talk about this guy. All right. Now look
Jesus
at him.
Christ.
Right?
Hang on. His name is Dick Midget.
Yes, correct. That would be the first one. His father set him up for failure immediately. All right, from day one. Now, look, don't get me wrong. My best friend, okay, in high school, his last name was Midget. Okay, and but his first name was not Richard. So this man was set up for failure from the beginning. Now, okay, now let's look at this guy. Right, he's got the long hair, he's got the skinny fat body. Okay, this is that type of guy who this is that type of guy who thinks that he knows something about politics, or he definitely has an opinion, okay, about everything. He's also got that small, compacted, like lumping Irish face, which is also a big no-no for me.
Well, you see this thing around his neck.
Is that some Native American bullshit?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's either that or some reference to a video game or some shit.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you can just tell he's a highly opinionated person. All right. This is that type of guy that you would I guarantee he has at least one denim jacket with like a
He
bunch
looks
of
like a DM.
yeah. He has a bunch. He has a denim jacket with a bunch of like Misfits band patches on it. Okay, yeah, this is that guy.
Okay.
He's
Do
at
you have the
every
article pulled up? I want to grab some more coffee.
yeah. He's at every like dollar pint Pabst night at the local dive bar.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's the
all
article.
right,
Can you read that for us while I grab some coffee?
certainly. Richard was laid off from his IT job. This guy sat in a car sobbing to indie rock music and spiraled into suicidal thoughts. But he couldn't call his parents for comfort because his dad voted for Trump. Dun, dun, dun. On the 26th day of Trump's term, Richard Midget, 28, was fired from his IT job at Yellowstone National Park. He drove to the only bridge in his town, stopping just past its edge. From the car, he listened to the rushing of the water and, for the first time, contemplated whether to end his life. He pulled into a gas station next to the bridge and considered calling his parents. His dad had voted for Trump and for weeks had been cheering the president's promise to purge the government. The Washington Post go on to claim that Richard is mentally healthy. We beg to differ. He never suffered from depression or other mental problems, he said, but as he sat nearly unemployed in his idling car just past the bridge, he was overwhelmed by dark thoughts. All right. One is almost left to wonder if Dick Midget, in fact, came up with this image or this scene in his head and then called in to the whatever rag, Washington Post, of course, and then called the Washington Post to offer his story. Okay, sounds a little scripted, like maybe something out of like a Twin Peaks like a subplot or something. I don't know, but yeah, this man is soylent to the extreme. All right, this man is a living, breathing Wojak meme. So, anyway. Now, would you like to finish up, Chris, with the obese black woman?
Hang on. His dad voted for Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, I think, sadly, I think every one of us has one of these family members, like, who, like, self-isolated or basically thinks that they're a victim, that their family is, some cross between, between like Schindler's List and The Handmaid's Tale, like, and they've been isolated, and basically they hate their family. I think we all have a family member like this, unfortunately. If Trump was half as evil as these people think he is, I would be much more satisfied with his presidency, to be honest.
Yeah.
If Trump,
God, please give me the Trump the Democrats are afraid of.
Exactly. Yep.
Monique was obese and had hypertension and high blood sugar, but somehow it was Trump and Doge's fault that she died. On the morning of February 18th, Monique and others returned from the President's Day weekend to an office tense with news of King's departure and rumors of more cuts. Monique was at her cubicle on the third floor of headquarters when she collapsed, coworkers said. The medical examiner listed the cause of death as hypertensive atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease.
She couldn't breathe, basically. You could picture this.
Basically, her blood pressure spiked, and she got so short of breath that it shut down her respiratory system and caused her heart to seize.
Yeah.
Monique's family and many close coworkers blamed her heart attack on stress at work. Okay. I got to cover a couple of things here.
She had a black girl magic moment. Literally collapsing on the floor at her desk, throwing a fit like she was a Popeyes fast food employee. Okay, that's what you had here. You had a woman who did that black woman magic thing where they worked themselves up into a tailspin. Okay, specifically for the purpose of having a highly dramatic emotive moment, and it looks like at her age and at her BMI index, that was a poor choice. That's what happened there.
I think B's got the right take here.
The yams with extra syrup.
Y'all, I've talked about fighting with my weight That was a big struggle for me for a long time. Right now, I'm not struggling with my weight so much as I'd like to lose another 15 or 20 pounds and get back down to murder machine composition. But when I went to enlist, the first thing I did, I had to lose about 60 pounds to get in, and I just stopped drinking soda and sweet tea.
Yeah.
Right. And I love sweet tea. I don't really care for soda generally anymore. I kind of lost my taste for it for most soda pop. I like a ginger ale every now and then. Maybe an old Moscow Mule. I love me some sweet tea. I haven't had a sweet tea in almost 20 years.
I despise sweet tea. I am Yankee through and through in that regards. I like my tea unsweetened, and I like a slice of lemon in it. That you made sweet tea once at DLI, and I was offended watching you make it. How do you are you defying like the laws of chemistry with supersaturation with the amount of sugar you put into that shit? Okay, I'm like, I was half expecting you to start stirring it, and then the whole thing just like reach a state of supersaturation and lock up as a single brown like sugar block. I'm like, how does?
And the funny bit is, even when I did make sweet tea and drink sweet tea, and I used to make it at DLI, that was not real sweet. Like I've never made like over the top sweet tea as compared to what you get if you go to say a KFC or a Mrs. Winters or a Waffle House and order a sweet tea. Like even back then when I did drink sweet tea, I would often order it half cut with unsweet because it was always too sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I had to do stuff to take care of myself. And I'm telling you, I cutting soda pop and sweet tea out. I lost almost 50 pounds in a month, and that was the only thing I changed. Is I just beverages. I went to drinking nothing but black coffee and water.
Yeah,
and so that was the only thing I changed in my diet, and then I added 3 hours a day on an elliptical machine, watching Star Trek.
You must have got real ornery and pissy at the beginning, like not having that dopamine on drip.
Oh yeah, my cigarette budget doubled at the time. Make no mistake, but I figured, well, no calories in these motherfuckers.
It's true. That's true. But Tabo Boost. Yep.
Yeah. Aaron, it was Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Nice.
I watched the entire series from an elliptical machine at an Army gym in Savannah, Georgia, as it was run in 3-hour marathons on Spike Television in 2005.
It was the last, if I may say something controversial, the last good Star Trek series. Okay. Everything after that was trash.
And Aaron says the best one. I'd have to say it's a toss-up between
underrated
TNG and DS9. But yeah. DS9 was, I think DS9 is my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to argue with Jean-Luc Picard. He was fantastic. But Deep Space Nine, the military political intrigue and the serial nature of it was just fantastic.
My uncle gave me like the entire Next Generation on VHS. Okay, I'm talking like
yeah,
a stack of VHS tapes that are like the same size as me at that age. Okay, and I have my own little VCR like TV thing in my room. I watched all of the Next Generation like as a child, every single episode. So that will always be number one for me. Okay.
And there's some chatter going on in the chat here. Pitt Daniel was asking, was that the one with Jerry Ryan? And Aaron points out, no, that was Voyager. Yeah, Jerry Ryan played 7 of 9 in Voyager. And honestly, I liked Voyager.
Yeah, all we had to do is mention Star Trek, and we outed all the geeks.
Yeah,
Well done,
too
audience.
easy.
You got profiled.
Where's Cameron?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so, and that completely derailed what I was thinking about. So
Whatever.
It's probably about time to wrap it up anyway, because I got to get on the road headed to, where the hell am I going this morning?
Remember, it's not just a.
I'm going to Stonecrest this morning.
Ooh, I don't even know what that is. I assume it's bad.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it later, or behind the paywall sometime.
Methinks there be demographics issues here.
I'll say this about Stonecrest. What Stonecrest is today is Oprah's fault.
I believe it.
It was an intentional sabotage.
The Black Illuminati, the Boule, came into town, and they ruined it, of course.
So, yep. All right. Well, before we let ourselves wander too far down that particular rabbit hole, which is functionally unproductive this morning, and like I said, I do need to get moving. You got anything to close on, Mario?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the show doesn't have to be like hard politics all the time. This is kind of like it's a morning show. You know what I mean? The audience is grabbing your cup of coffee. It's not Good Morning America. You know, maybe it's Good Morning Central Georgia or something. But anyway,
actually, let me do this before we
have fun. That's okay.
And let me do this before we wrap up too. There are some topics that are off politics, but can definitely be politics adjacent, politics related, especially
everything
today.
Is political. Yes.
Well, and yeah. So you guys in the chat, do it in the live chat, but more importantly, go to the comments, and maybe this will be worth doing an X poll on. Give me some ideas for stuff that you'd like to hear us cover. Feel free to send articles. Anytime you can send articles to. You can send articles to the show at brushfiremind.com. I know there were some issues with sending emails recently, and those appear to have been resolved. So, send submissions to the show at brushfiremind. That can be just a quick little note that says, "Hey, can you talk about, the tunnel Jews, for example?" Or if you see an article that I don't see everything. I've only got a half a dozen monitors to look at right now, so sometimes stuff slips by. So send us submissions to the show at Brushfiremind. Leave it in the comments in the live chat, stuff that you'd like to see us cover. And I've got a couple of ideas. Like I want to talk, obviously, we're going to talk more about AI. Some of that's going to get into the politics of AI. Some of that's going to get into the news of AI. And some of it, like this past Saturday's show, is going to be digging into the ontology, the epistemology, the metaphysics of artificial intelligence. Well, and that gets us into things like, what is the identity of God? What is the locus of the soul, right? That can get into some high-level philosophical and theological discussion that I think Mario and I will have a lot of fun with and do some great shows around. Another one that I've covered, I've done some shows on this before, and they've done extremely well with just random viewers and helped us gain more subscribers. UFO stuff. I'm not a true believer, but I am certainly I'm skeptical of the idea that life is only on Earth and nowhere else. I don't find that concept to be mathematically credible. I don't even find it to be theologically credible.
Right.
But there have been theoretical whistleblowers popping up and doing congressional hearings and stuff. Now, I know that over the last 4 years, a lot of that was every time Hunter Biden got stuck with another, Coke straw in a hooker's ass, there would be a new revelation about the most recent alien autopsy. But that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, there are at a minimum people who believe in UFOs, who purport to have credible evidence of their existence, and there are people who apparently have high-level clearance and are whistleblowing on the existence of UFOs. And even there's a whole other conversation to be had on whether or not the existence of UFOs is identical to the guarantee of the existence of extraterrestrial life, because they're not the same thing. That there are UFOs does not guarantee there are aliens, and your one's assumption that there cannot be aliens does not negate the probability of unidentified aerial vehicles.
I don't think you intended to, but now you're doing an entire new segment now.
I am, anyway. And I did not intend to. But
okay, couple
give
things.
Me some ideas like that, guys. There's lots of stuff that we can do that's not directly politics. And anything
Chad,
else you wanted to say, Mario?
Yes, Chad has the answer. Pit Danny, James Lowry, and be controversial. We need a hot chick in the middle of the screen, okay? And it's not Cameron, all right? We need a chick. We need like a based and red-pilled trad woman, okay, who's basically not afraid to run her mouth. That's what we need, right in the middle, okay? That would get that would get viewership up big time. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Actually,
people like hot chicks.
We haven't talked about this on air yet, and actually Mario and I haven't talked about this off air yet. But I am working on a couple of things that are not quite that, but kind of moving in that direction. So, I'm not going to say any more than that here, but, y'all pay attention, because stuff's starting to happen over here.
Maybe we can steal someone else's internet girl. We can start there.
I think that'd be worth shooting a short film about. I'll throw on my loincloth and grab a club. Go abduct Ann Coulter.
Digital hoe snatchers.
Just drag her into the woods by an ankle.
Yeah. Put her in front of a microphone. No shit here now. Okay. Anyway.
Shit, Mario, you keep dropping ideas like that on me. I may have to go ahead and spend the $120 on Google VO3, because that's just cheaper, and it's easier on my knees than actually filming the abduction of of Ann Coulter or whoever. Sergeant Major says pinup girls from World War II. I could do a whole segment on the pinups. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole segment, but let me throw this at you real quick. No. Last Friday, I did for the Firearms Friday show. Do I still have it? No, I already deleted the thumbnail. But the thumbnail, because we're talking about silencers, included a kind of a modern. It was kind of a pinup style modern chick in like big tits, right? But and holding a pair of guns with silencers on it for the pun. Look, check out these cans. Here's what I ran into: ChatGPT and Grok and the other mainstream like primary AI sources for image generation would not generate the pinup girl. Like, we're talking kind of a classic, tasteful. It's, it's there's a sexy note to it, but it's artistic and classic. It's not pornography, right? But they have policies against sexualizing women. Like, okay, look, there is a fine damn line between Hustler magazine and the Venus de Milo, right? But let me tell you something. It's a fine line, but it's in that fine line, the space between almost perfect and perfect is an infinite gulf.
Women are,
and so right now, if you want to do something, if you want to design like a Betty Page pinup, tasteful, artistic, World War II bomber girl, Rosie the Riveter kind of thing in one of these AIs, the mainstream AIs won't do a good job of it because they resist the quote sexualization. But then there are other AIs that are there to do NSFW, not safe for work material, that people are using to make pornography. And because of the way those have been trained, your Venus de Milo is going to be Hustler magazine schlock, and there's not a space in between.
Are you asking?
You don't have a space between Mother Superior and uh, Stormy Daniels. And so the AI apparently doesn't understand that there are women that are not the Mother Superior and also not Stormy Daniels. There's nothing in between for the AI image generation right now, and that I think might present a serious problem for the future.
Are you asking the audience to create a Brushfire Mind waifu for use on the show? We can't do that.
That we can do.
You want to be like a mascot? Yeah. But that's a Suka. That's a Suka from Evangelion. Okay, can't use that.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's supposed to be a little robot so that because that's for when I do the show prep. I go live to do the show prep in the morning sometimes.
Mhm.
Well, and I'm talking to the AI. But yeah, so yeah, you guys think about that. Send us requests. Hit us on X for that kind of commentary. And I'm gonna go ahead and put a pin in it right there, Mario.
Yep.
You good?
I'm good.
Thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.
Ciao. You're talking about like